Can you see my webcam? I don't see it. It does say you're viewing Scott Ridgely's screen, but that is not my screen, because all those, whatever is on the bottom is not what I have.
What are you seeing on the bottom? I wonder if it's mine.
Well, on the, whoever has the desktop that has all those icons on the bottom, that's not my desktop. And that has all those tabs open. Mary, do you have a bunch of tabs open that have a bunch of articles?
What's it saying? Like how governments? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're seeing your screen instead. Okay.
So you can, Mary, you have the PowerPoint. You could always pull it up, I believe.
So let me see. All right, let me see if I can get that up. Then I lose the GoToWebinar screen. That's fine. Let's see. When did you send that to me? I'm opening. I had it on my iPad so I could see it. Let's see.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're in business.
How do I make it full screen? There. Does that work?
Mary, you might want to delete your emails, or I'm sorry, shut your emails in the interim so nothing else pops up.
Well, let me see how I do that.
Oh, go back to inbox and just close it.
No, I can't find it. I can't find the upper right corner. Okay. Everything else is off of it. That got it? All right, and then if I go into slideshow mode, that should work, right?
Yeah.
I love technology. Okay, it's not doing it. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Are we good now? All right.
Yep. Okay, so everybody that's on the line, we apologize for the technical difficulties and appreciate your patience. And we have on the line with us Mary Morris and Scott Ridgely from Able Now. They're going to do a presentation for us, and then we'll do a little Q&A session at the end. I'm going to turn it over to them in just a few minutes, but I have a couple of announcements first. First of all, I am recording and archiving this webinar for the benefit of all those who were not able to join us today. So as soon as the presentation is over, I will archive it and send out the links to everyone, and you can share it with your colleagues that were not able to participate. We have both WISAs and VR counselors on the line with us, and so I have announcements for each of you. For the WISAs on the line, I made a deal with Ray Sabuga where any of the webinars that I facilitate can count towards your 60 hours of continuing education credits if you're certified through Cornell. So you can count your participation in this webinar towards your 60 hours of continuing ed. If you have any questions about how to log in or access your portal, you can email Ray's assistant, Michelle Elvord, at msa227@cornell.edu, and Michelle can walk you through the process of logging in your credits. For the VR counselors on the line, there are CRCs available for your participation today. If you need CRC credit, send me an email after the training at Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, .klinger, K-L-I-N-G-E-R, at dars.virginia.gov, and I'll take care of getting those credits for you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott and Mary to begin the presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. So this is Scott Ridgely. I'm the marketing director for Virginia 529 and for Able Now, and Mary Morris is joining us as well. She is the CEO of Virginia 529 and Able Now, and so we're going to walk you guys briefly through how Able Now accounts are set up, what led to Able Now accounts being available for Virginia residents, and then certainly going to provide you some details on our program and how it works. If we can all hold our questions till the end, that would be great. The presentation itself is probably only going to be about 20, 25, 30 minutes, so we've allowed plenty of time for questions. And I will say that during the presentation, I'll probably do most of the primary talking, but I'm going to let Mary jump in whenever she sees fit to kind of fill in the gaps on any information I might have left out. But then certainly both of us will be able to equipped to answer questions at the end. So Mary, if you can move us forward one slide, Mary.
Well, see there, I was going to jump in and see. So my regular spot, if someone can tell me where on the webinar I want to click to advance.
Just push the down arrow. Just push the down arrow on your keyboard.
You would think, but that is not working. So I don't know if I have control of my screen.
You should. You don't need to, Mary, you should not view it in the webinar screen. You can view it on the actual PowerPoint. So just go to the PowerPoint. There you
go. Okay, but it opened up. I'm in it. Sorry, folks, but there we go. Maybe that's doing it. Here we go.
There we go.
Sorry. Now it's working. I love technology when I don't. So, okay, we're good.
So after today's session, we're hoping we're going to leave you guys with an understanding of just the basics of how ABLE savings accounts work and if they're right for you, the real benefits of our program, ABLE Now, which is Virginia's ABLE program, and then how you can get some more information and either open an account for yourself or for your constituents that you're working for. We're going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions as much as we can. So Mary, if you can go to the next slide. I hope most of you guys have heard about ABLE accounts at this point, either through news coverage that we're hopefully getting a lot of to get the news out there, maybe through your friends and family or through the community or through your DARS representative. But ABLE accounts really emerged about a decade ago. It's about a group of Virginia parents who were sitting around a kitchen table and discussing why they could save for their kids without a disability at college, but they couldn't have that same level of savings for their children with disabilities. So that led to about a 10-year-long advocacy mission that led to the National ABLE Act being passed. It really pushed them to push for this federal ABLE Act. It modified the tax code and it opened the doors for individual states to set up ABLE accounts. So we had, in 2014, President Obama signed into law the Federal ABLE Act, and all that did was authorize the individual states to set up their own ABLE program. It allowed for some of the tax advantages that we'll talk about in a second, but it was really up to each individual state to set up how they wanted to have their ABLE program run. So the Virginia General Assembly passed ABLE legislation the following year and tasked our agency, which is Virginia 529, with implementing the ABLE program, and we've been setting it up ever since. I'll talk again a little bit later on, but we opened up in December of last year, and we're going pretty well at this point. So ABLE accounts are a new tax advantage savings account. It's for eligible individuals with a disability. Go back to the previous one, Mary, if you can.
Okay.
I talked a little bit about that one. So you can save up to $14,000 a year in an ABLE account without endangering your eligibility for means-tested disability benefit programs. $14,000 was a number that had changed a little bit, but I believe that's tied to the federal gift tax level. Is that correct, Mary, for this year or for the current year?
Yes.
But it could change based on what legislation might be during the time frame. They did name these accounts. Good.
Yeah, it's pegged to the federal gift tax exclusion amount for an individual. So that's slated. It doesn't go up a lot quickly, but it'll go up. I think next year it goes up to $15,000, but it's pegged to that.
Okay, so the law, as we said, was passed in 2014. It's named after Stephen Beck, who was one of those gentlemen at the kitchen table way back when. And actually, sadly, he passed away right after the bill was signed into law, but it has been renamed that in honor of his advocacy for the program. So in 2015, as I mentioned there, Governor McAuliffe, as you can see, signing the legislation, we were the first state in the country to pass the ABLE legislation on a state level, and it authorized us to develop the program inside of Virginia. Go forward to the next one, Mary. So ABLE Now, as I said, is the Virginia-sponsored ABLE program. It's open to residents of anywhere in the country, so it doesn't have to be a Virginia resident. So if you're working with individuals who might live outside of the state or family members of those who live outside of the state, ABLE Now is designed as a national program, and it's open for any eligible U.S. citizen and legal resident regardless of where you live. As of right now, there's only a few states that are offering ABLE programs. It's actually up to about 20 at this point. But no matter where you live, you can start an ABLE savings program just like ABLE Now, regardless of where you live. ABLE rules are consistent from program to program. For example, what's eligibility, how much you can save. not every ABLE program is going to be exactly the same. So we always tell folks and individuals that it's best to look at your individual states or look at other states to see which program might work best for you. But given that we're speaking today to representatives from Virginia agencies, it's probably going to make most sense for them to look into an Able Now account because of some of the tax advantages that we've set in place to allow folks to really maximize the benefits that they get from our accounts. So as I've mentioned again, Able Now is administered by Virginia 529. We are the nation's largest college savings plan. We're going into our 20th year of existence right now, and we have over 2 million accounts and $54 billion in assets. So we certainly are well versed in helping families save for college educations, and we've tried to take some of that same mentality and pass it along to ABLE accounts. One of our savings programs was recently named one of the top saving programs in the country by an independent investment research provider. So we tell people that sometimes to give them some authority that really we know what we're doing here in the agency. We understand how to help families save for college, and it's now our mission to help families save for future disability expenses as well. Okay, let's go into some eligibility questions now. So that's the main number that you're going to hear a lot about with ABLE accounts is there's been an eligibility level set at the age of 26. So you're only eligible to open up an Able Now account if you develop the onset of your disability before you turn 26 years old, and you are entitled to either SSI or SSDI benefits based on your blindness or just an overall disability. Now the caveat to that is if somebody is not receiving SSI or SSDI, you can do a self-certification that you're eligible for an Able Now account, but that needs to have a qualifying disability diagnosis from a physician. It's relatively simple, and we found most people know whether or not they're eligible just based on that determination, but we do have an eligibility quiz on our website, which is at able-now.com, that walks everybody through the guidelines. Eligible individual can open up their own account independently if they're over the age of 18. If the eligible individual is under the age of 18, so a young minor, a parent can open an account for them. If there's an older individual that wants to open an account but they cannot do it themselves, or they prefer to have some assistance, an individual who's legally authorized to act on his or her behalf, like a legal guardian or a power of attorney, can open and manage the account as the authorized representative. Excuse me. One other caveat to put in place for eligibility is you're only allowed to have one ABLE account at any point in time. So while there might be 20 states, lots of different programs out there, each eligible individual can only have one associated ABLE account at one point in time.
Right.
Okay, to the next.
I will say, Scott.
Sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
No,
the one caveat to that is you can make changes. So you can what's called a rollover or transfer from one account to the other. So there's that small period of time where technically there are two accounts open, but you do have to open up a new account and then transfer the proceeds and close out the old account. These are some of the things, we're a very new program, so some of these may seem a little bit clunky or cumbersome, particularly, trying to determine eligibility as we move forward and all of us get more experience and as the rules become clarified. Social Security for administration, for example, themselves puts out guidance. It'll get a little bit smoother, but that is one caveat on those accounts.
Okay. So the next slide talks a little bit more about how you use your Able Now account and how those expenses can be tracked and how the benefits are able to be received by the actual account holders. So you can use your money in an Able Now account if you incurred the expense at the time you were considered an eligible individual, which means if you had a disability and you no longer are susceptible to that disability, then you're obviously no longer eligible to use your Able Now account. But if you were disabled or if you were an eligible individual at the time of the expense, you're able to use an Able Now account for that. The expense has to relate to your blindness or your disability, and the expense has to help you maintain your health, your independence, or your quality of life. Now, that's a very broad statement, and we realize that, but it's really subject to interpretation on the individual or the counselor who's working with them on what classifies helping somebody maintain their health, independence, and quality of life. We've given you some specific examples up here that we were able to identify: basic living expenses, health and wellness, legal fees, assistive technology, education and training, but there's plenty more than just these broad categories that we've listed on this slide. Our online customer portal that we help customers utilize to track their expenses allows people to make notations of what they spent their Able Now funds on in regards to what qualified disability expense it was or how it related to your particular disability. So we let people track that in case there ever is a situation where there's an audit or there's a need to justify the expense. But as I mentioned at the beginning, this is broad intentionally to allow people to use it for what is specific to their individual disability. So a therapeutic massage might make sense for somebody that has a physical disability, whereas an able-bodied person might not be able to classify that as something that helps them maintain their health. So in certain situations, a person's going to have to use their judgment on what classifies as a qualified Able Now expense.
The one thing I'll say on that, although there are a number of restrictions and some things that that may, the age 26 and some of those things, this is the one area where I think Congress was very clear, and when we've talked to Treasury as they've developed the regulations, this is where they are intentionally very broad. So and we get a lot of questions on this, and so it's difficult for us to give an exact answer, and that's why I think Scott is wise to say use your judgment. However, it is intended to be broad and relate basically, even travel expenses. If you require assistance if you are going to travel, whether it's for business or for pleasure, and you need to have a companion, then we believe you can cover those expenses. But probably don't take the entire family on a lengthy trip. That's probably going to trip you up. Those are the types of expenses where you'd be pushing the envelope. So again, the restrictions on how much you can put into these accounts will limit that somewhat. But this is intended. This is the sort of the biggest benefit in these programs, is that this part of it is very broad. Okay. Back to you, Scott. Did we lose you?
Okay, so now we're going to, yep, sorry about that. Now we're going to move forward to learning a little bit more about our ABLE program and some of the specifics about how it works functionally, about our Able Now card, some of the investment options, and some of the costs associated with maintaining an Able Now account. Okay, to the next slide. So the benefits of an Able Now account, it's flexible. So the accounts are designed to be flexible, where they're easy to manage, easy to contribute to, and easy to use for your qualified disability expenses. We require no minimum to open up an account, so a person doesn't have to put in $100, $500, whatever, at the time the account is funded. And with Able Now, you can pay for your qualified disability expenses online or directly with a debit card. We call it the Able Now card, and it's tied directly to your account, so you have easy access to your funds. One of the main things for Virginia residents that we really want to stress is that it comes with some great tax advantages. So the money that is in your Able Now account grows free from federal taxes. And in addition, Virginia offers a great state tax deduction. So you can receive up to a $2,000 tax deduction each year per contributor for contributions to an Able Now account. Now, what does that mean in particular? If mom and dad each put $2,000 in, that's $2,000 plus $2,000, $4,000. Or grandma and grandpa can put some money towards the account on an annual basis. So the person who's making the contribution gets the tax deduction up to $2,000 per year for contributions you make to an account. It's great, but you do have to keep in mind that there is that $14,000 cap on one calendar year of money that you can contribute to your Able Now accounts. Another thing to take into consideration is it does not impact any of your benefits. Generally, what we say is funds in an Able Now account are disregarded for determining eligibility for certain means-tested benefits programs like Medicaid, supplemental security income. We have a little bit more on that on our website, which is able-now.com, for full rules and details, limitations, and exceptions. But really what we try to reiterate to families all the time, because this is something that's such a game changer from what you're used to, is there is no impact whatsoever on your Medicaid benefits regardless of how much money you put into your Able Now account. The only limitation you have is that for SSI benefits, an account balance up to and including $100,000 is disregarded when determining SSI eligibility. Once you exceed $100,000, it does impact your ability to receive SSI. So obviously with that $14,000 a year cap, it's going to take many years before somebody's going to get up to that point, but our system is put in place to alert you, to send you emails and notifications when you're coming close to hitting that threshold, so that if you are concerned about losing SSI benefits, we're going to put a system in place to allow you to either spend down your funds or to stop contributions so you don't have to be faced with the possibility of losing those benefits. One other exception that I'll get to, maybe you can stay on this slide, Mary, is that an account withdrawal that is used, that's used for housing expense, but that's not spent in the same calendar month, is considered an asset and may cause SSI benefits to be reduced or suspended. So what that means is if you have a mortgage or if you have rent to pay on June the 1st and you make a withdrawal from your Able Now account on May 30th and you make the payment on June 2nd, that can impact your SSI benefits. It's just one of those quirks of the law and how it was set up, but a person is in their best interest to make a withdrawal and make a payment in the same month that they need it, specifically for housing, just so you're not at risk of losing your SSI benefits. Okay, the Able Now card, which I mentioned before, is a benefit that's exclusive to our program. Every account holder receives the Able Now debit card, and it's really a fast, qualified way to spend your or to get your disability expenses out of your Able Now account and directly to a retailer wherever you're trying to make a purchase. It can be used for purchases up to $5,000. For anything higher than that, you're going to need to use our online account portal to have money transferred directly to the payee, or you can transfer it to another bank account for distribution. But we put a $5,000 cap on that Able Now card per day, or excuse me, per transaction. Okay, so we've talked a lot about money that's going into your Able Now account. Let's talk about what you can do with it once it's inside of the Able Now portfolio. So Mary, to the next slide for investment options. Able Now makes it as easy as we can to help people save and invest at their own pace. The first $2,000 that you put into your Able Now account is going to automatically be allocated to the Able Now deposit account, which is linked directly to your Able Now card. And once that balance exceeds $2,000, the individual is going to have the option to choose to invest in additional contributions or invest their additional contributions into one or more of the investment portfolios that you see on the screen there. We have 4, the aggressive growth, moderate growth, conservative income, and money market. And on our website, you can get some more details about those. Each of those is really designed to it's intended to address a different investment strategy and a different risk tolerance depending on the individual. But you never have to put money in those investment options. If you choose, your money can always stay in that deposit account where you're not getting an investment return, but you're also not at risk of losing any of that principal.
Right, and I'll jump in here, Scott. This is based on the custodian that provides this program is PNC Bank, and they are a large health savings account provider. And so our model is a little bit based on that, which is why you start off with that, and it's an interest-bearing, FDIC-insured deposit account. So, and the rate of interest that accrues on that account varies depending on how much is in there. So it runs from 10 basis points to 45 basis points that you'll earn from your deposit account. And then if you put additional funds into one of these investment options, you may have better or worse returns, obviously, and that's what Scott's talking about. For those who are quite conservative and don't want to risk losing any of their principal, they do have the option of just remaining with that interest-bearing deposit account or using, let's say, a money market account or the more conservative income approach within these investment options. If they have a little bit more risk tolerance and want the potential for additional growth in the account, then they might select the moderate growth or aggressive growth option. And again, we try to provide information on all those portfolios are in our disclosure materials as well as online.
Okay, so now to the fun part, which is that there are some account costs associated with having an Able Now account. As Mary said, we are working with a custodian, PNC Bank, so anytime you're working in a bank relationship, there are going to be some underlying fees associated with this. And you will find that with every single ABLE program that opens up, there are similar costs to what you're going to see here. So we do like to think that we have some of the lowest fees in the country amongst the open ABLE programs at this point. So unlike some others, we have no enrollment fee. So not only do you not have to we don't require that initial minimum contribution, but there's no fee to sign up or to join our program. There is an account service fee of $3.25 per month. But I will say that if you choose to maintain a balance in your Able Now deposit account over $10,000, we waive that fee on a monthly basis. So if you keep your first $12,000, $10,000, whatever the case might be in that Able Now deposit account, and then you choose to invest the rest of the funds afterwards, you can avoid paying that $3.25 per month fee. If the account owner chooses to put some money in one of the investment funds that we just talked about, there are also some asset-based fees which range between 37 to 40 basis points, and it depends on which just investment selection you're making. There are some small fees associated with a return check based on specific activity related to your account, and we have a full fee schedule on our website to give you a little bit more details, but most people are not going to qualify for any of those. So the main fees that account holders are going to have to pay attention to are that $3.25 per month account service fee and any asset-based fees that you have for investing your funds. Okay, so some of the basics of ABLE programs we just covered. Next section, we're going to kind of briefly go through a few things that an individual might want to consider when they're deciding whether or not an ABLE account makes sense for them or for their family versus some of the other options that are available to them. You got to identify your savings needs. So we've talked a lot about investments and being able to save for the future, but we've also found a lot of folks who are using ABLE Now accounts right now are using it as a short-term way to process their money, way to have day-to-day living expenses and not have to worry about that $2,000 income cap. So you need to consider your current expenses and understand how you're going to use your ABLE Now account to save, or if you're going to use it for short-term expenditures. Think about what you're going to use some of those funds for. You're going to be using it for short-term transportation expenses, for therapy, for home modifications. Do you want to have easy access to funds to be able to pay for some of those services that you receive? But then you also need to think about how ABLE Now accounts are going to work with other income sources that you might be receiving. One question that we hear all the time is how an ABLE Now account balances out with a special needs trust. And absolutely, you can have both of them, and in many cases, people do. But what we're finding is an ABLE Now account is designed to be used in conjunction with some of these other trusts and accounts. Determining which one is most appropriate for you depends on your individual circumstances. But if you just heard me go through the fee structure, what you're going to find a lot of the times is an ABLE account is kind of a lower cost option for families that want to start saving some funds. Special needs trust will always be a viable option, but it does come with a high barrier, high initial entry cost to set one of those up, some of the lawyer fees associated with it, whereas an ABLE Now account does not cost you as much. We, as an agency, are not allowed to give formal tax, investment, or guidance, anything along those lines, so we have to recommend that individuals and families or individuals on the phone today consult with either a financial or legal professional to decide which one makes the most sense for their individual person's specific circumstance. You also need to
thing to remember,
Right,
I'm sorry, this is a good time to point out again, and it's one of the just the structural things in an ABLE account, and this is true for all of them. The owner of the account is the person with the disability. So even if you have someone who's a guardian or a parent who is helping to transact business on the account, it is the account of the person with the disability. So for those who are familiar with special needs trusts, it's more like a first-person special needs trust than a third person or a third party. And so they really can work well together. I think that the general rule of thumb is that a special needs trust is used for things over and above your basic expenses, your qualified disability expenses, and the ABLE accounts are specifically intended to cover those types of things. So they can work well in some instances if you have different sources of assets, but for those who don't, and what we're hearing is that most don't, these are ways for people to get started, to sort of take some measure of independence and start taking care of their own finances. An ABLE Now account can be a really great option for those folks.
Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about Yep, we talked a little earlier about potential contributions and how you can get money into your ABLE Now account. So we'll reiterate again, because it is one of the main elements of the program, is that you are limited to up to $14,000 a year that can be made to your ABLE Now account. But I will reiterate again that anybody is allowed to make that contribution, including the account owner, the family, and the friends. We hear that all the time about people are always so nervous about getting a contribution from a family member or friend because they're at risk of losing their potential for benefits and learning, or at risk of losing their SSI benefits. So this is one of the first opportunities that allows friends and family and others to make contributions or allow someone to save without endangering their potential benefits. So we have an online, or we're going to have online in the next month, about a month and a half, a portal that allows people to make gift contributions easily into somebody's Able Now account. So it's a good way for birthdays, holidays, graduations. And then keep in mind that Virginia state tax deduction is made eligible to the person who makes the contribution. So let's reiterate again that contributions from family and friends made directly into an Able Now account, they're not considered income to or assets of the individual with the disability when determining eligibility for those disability benefit programs. So people can make financial assistance and can provide financial assistance without endangering their eligibility. So the last thing to think about as you start saving your Able savings is we really do want you to compare Able programs. Again, for the people on this phone that are inside of Virginia, which is probably most of you, Virginia is going to make sense most of the time. But we'll highlight again some of the benefits of the Able Now program is that we have amongst the lowest fees in the industry. We try to make our program as easy to manage as you can, and by that I mean you're going to have 24/7 access to your Able Now account using our secure online customer portal, so somebody can make contributions, view their balances, make payments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We make contributions easily, so since there's no minimum contribution, you can choose how often, how much you want to contribute. You're not tied to a certain monthly payment. You can go 6 months without a payment, or you can make a payment every week, depending on a person's individual situation. You can make those payments online or by check, and then you can also save your bank account information so you can set up recurring automatic ACH contributions if that's easier for you. We allow people to use their funds as easy as possible. So you really just need to present that card, the Able Now card, at the point of sale to make a purchase that's under $5,000. You can use our online account portal to transfer funds from your Able Now account directly to a personal bank account, or you can use our online bill pay to pay a provider directly. Once you save more than $2,000, go ahead, Mary.
I'm sorry. We're not in the same place, so you're sort of jumping on top of each other. The debit card can't be used for cash, and that's just one thing for folks to know. So it's for purchasing either items or services. One of the reasons was to help make it easier to track expenses because we think that's going to be important for using these accounts, and it also keeps the fees down. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
So remember, like we talked about before, that you can save more than $2,000 in your Able Now deposit account and put that money into investment options. We have 4 different ones right now, and there's a possibility that in the future we'll add more funds as the need arises or as individual customers or individuals bring to our attention different types of options that they might be looking for. But most importantly is that we wanted to have a great program for people inside of the state of Virginia. The tax advantage of $2,000 state tax deduction each year is a great opportunity for people to be able to start saving money, realize an immediate benefit by having that state tax deduction, but the long-term federal tax-free growth that comes from an Able Now account. So the next steps is how to open up an account. If somebody's getting ready to start their savings with an Able Now program, go ahead, Mary.
It locked up on me. I am advancing and it's not moving. Sorry.
I'll talk through it here.
Control,
the next step is really going to be for, well, as you're trying to figure that out, I'll just kind of talk through it. The next step for somebody is going to be to go to able-now.com. That is our website that has a brief introductory video on how the programs work. Certainly some more information than what we've shared with you today. You can read our full program materials, which is really into the weeds and details of how an ABLE program works and how our program specifically works. Identify some more of those fees that we talked about before. Some great links and information for folks that are learning about ABLE programs a little bit more, learning about some of the ABLE advocacy groups that have come together to help share news about the ABLE programs. But then more importantly, you're going to see on that page some links at the top to help people manage their account. So that's once you've opened up an account, which is clicking on the purple button that you see on the screen right now. In the top right corner, there is a button called My Account. There's also going to be something eventually for making a contribution into your account. So different places where people can navigate to learn more about their account and get access to our online account portal so that they can manage their day-to-day finances. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can subscribe to get some updates on our program as they're made available. And then you can also contact customer service. We have a great customer service group here in our office that's available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. And they're here to answer your questions via email, over the phone, or via online customer chat. So we have real-time chat accessibility for folks as well. So lots of good information that you can go to our website and learn a little bit more about. You can also do a couple more things. You can go follow us on Facebook or Twitter. We're really interactive on Facebook. That's at AbleNowVA. Same thing on Twitter. And we find some really good conversations come back and forth with constituents and people who are really interested in learning more about the programs. So we like to share as much news as we can out there. But what we really want people to do is, we're here as an organization trying to put this program out to everybody so that they can learn and benefit from it. But the reality is we're going to need help from individuals like yourselves on the phone here today to help advocate for us and to help spread the message out to people who could really benefit from this program and help them understand that it's okay to start saving, that they're really not at risk of losing their benefits any longer, because that's such a big hurdle for people to get over. When they hear from those of us here at Able Now, there's a little bit of skepticism, and we realize that, and that's why we're trying to be as out front of this as we can and talking to as many families as we can. But we really feel like individuals like yourselves are going to help us move this along a little bit faster. So the more that you can share this information with your community is going to help us really grow this program and really help as many people as we can as quick as we possibly can. Okay, Mary, I think. Go next slide, Mary.
Yep. Oh, here we go. And it locked up again.
Well, the last, as you're getting there, the last slide that we have, there you go, it's FAQs. So we've addressed almost all these questions throughout the presentation. The one that I will highlight that we didn't talk about is what happens to the money in the Able Now account after my death? Is there Medicaid payback? And that's one of the things that people have heard about a little bit on the side, and that's one of the main negative elements that would be associated with an Able account that we can't hide from because it is part of the Act and it's how it was written. So when a person that has an Able Now account is deceased and they have access, or whoever is controlling that person's estate can utilize the Able Now account to pay for any final expenses. So they can pay for burial, they can pay for anything else that was outstanding at the time of death. After that point in time, Medicaid has the option to reach into that account and take any funds that are remaining to pay for the services that were received during the lifetime of the individual that had the Able Now account. So they have the ability to do it. Since we're just now getting established, we haven't really seen how much of that will actually take place, but that is written into the law, so that is something that Medicaid does have the option to do.
Right, and remember, it's a claim against the estate just as they would have for any other asset that someone dies the owner of. So if I think it comes up most often for someone who has a disability after they've acquired some property or after they have a home, for example. So there's some fairly technical rules about when Medicaid will make a claim. And as an industry, we're trying to sort some of that out. And there was legislation pending last year in Congress, and I'm sure it will be in again this year, that would exclude that and would allow Able Now accounts to be excluded. But the basic premise is that they're treated more like first-person special needs trusts now, which are assets of the account owner or the beneficiary, and therefore they're subject to a claim for Medicaid payments received.
So I've answered as many questions as I can. If there's going to be a little bit more on our website at ablenow.com, able-now.com/resources/FAQs. So we try to get into as much detail as we can, and we're constantly adding feedback and content based on questions that we receive. There's lots of great questions that we've received over the course of time since this program has opened. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we opened in December of 2016. We are now about 2.5 months into our programs being open, and we're coming up on 1,000 opened accounts at this point, which might not seem like that many, but amongst all the plans who are open, we actually have the second most accounts of any state that's operational at this point. So we are proud of that, but we really want to get a lot more. We really want to get the message out to as many individuals as we can to help them get the benefit of an Able Now account. So we're really happy that the counselors who are on the phone here today are going to hopefully take some of this information back and kind of allay some of the fears that families have on our program. At this point, Michael, I think we are ready for any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, great. And the attendees are in listen-only mode. So if you have a question, you can either type it in the chat box, or else just send me a message that you want your line unmuted, and I can unmute it for you.
Okay.
Well, yeah. While that's happening, I will just say if people have questions that didn't get answered today or they didn't want to bring up this afternoon, as I mentioned, our customer service staff is well equipped to handle any of these questions. We have our phone number, which is on the screen right now, 844-NOW-ABLE, and that email address, have online chat. We will get back to you as quickly as we can with any questions because we know this is an evolving program. There's questions that might come up when you're meeting with actual individuals, and if we don't have that answer right away, we will get it for you.
Yeah, I think as we wait for any questions to come in, that's one of the things that we're finding and that we know from 20 years of experience in college savings. We will hope that the fees will all come down over time. They certainly did in college savings. We'll get more answers about how these programs can be used, how they're really helpful, and we'll continue to try and adapt and modify them to make them better. And we will continually be working. There are a number of legislative initiatives that we're working on already with some of our colleagues from around the country. Things like trying to increase the age of disability onset. Some of the things that are in there were simply to keep the federal tax cost down, and we hope over time we'll be able to get some more flexibility there. So there's much work to be done in these programs, but we think they're a great start to help families plan for the future and to really help individuals take control of their own finances and get a little bit of a measure of independence and sort of an empowerment tool for people with disabilities to control their finances.
Okay, and I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box yet. Does anybody have a question, concern, or comment?
You answered them all, Scott.
We've done these enough that we know people always have questions, and that's part of the reason why we really highlight that customer service, because we can address plenty of things, but there's individual situations that arise and individual assurances that need to happen. So again, feel free to contact us with any of those if they continue to arise.
Looks like there is a comment in the chat box. One of our WISs say, I have made a referral for an ABLE account and they've opened one. They said it was smooth and that they already benefit by using it for their bills and their rent. This was a person whose parent, a parent of a disabled child who had no idea about ABLE. So they're already using it and it seems to be working well. That's great to hear.
Good news. Great. It's one of the things that we've tried as we've put this together, and again, we're adding enhancements. Scott mentioned the contributor portal and some things that are still being built between us and our record keeper, program manager, but we're really trying to find something that's user-friendly, that tries to answer as many questions as possible for something that's fairly complex. You know, some of these eligibility rules can seem a little bit tricky, and you know, you have to read through some things. So we've tried to, the quiz I think you'll find on able-now.com really tries to help walk people through ensuring whether or not they're eligible in a way that is pretty easy and straightforward. So hope that folks will go check out the website and see some of the tools that we have there, and we'll keep adding things. And anybody that ever has suggestions, we're always open to suggestions for ways that we can make the program more accessible and more helpful to families.
Any last questions, concerns, or comments? Looks like there's a couple questions. One of our WISs asks, can a spouse be added to the account?
I assume they mean like to make payments. I guess one answer is yes. So you can, if you have a debit card, there's actually a provision once you open up the account, when you go on to the account portal, you can request a second debit card, and so that could be used. The account owner is just the person with a disability, but more than one person can actually access and use the account for the benefit of the person for whom it's intended. Does that answer the question? Okay. know sometimes that's one of those things. It's trying to ensure really protections. So for a spouse, hopefully there would be a power of attorney in place if the spouse wants to actually essentially take control of the account or take care of all of it. But if the person with a disability wants the spouse to help them accessing the account site, dealing with some of the just the mechanics of dealing with the account, then they can certainly have someone help them with that as well.
Okay, great. Any others?
We good? And we're around, as Scott said. You can call us, email us.
And we're willing to send out materials to any of your organizations. We have obviously tons of brochures and full program materials that give full explanations of how our program works. So we just need to know where to send them, and we're happy to get out there because we know that those of you out there are advocates and the people that will really be helping get this message spread. So just ask and we will send it along.
Well, great. And thank you, Scott and Mary, for being with us today. Appreciate your time and the great information that you provided.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to spread the word.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, have a great day, everyone, and I will get the link to the archive out as soon as possible. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.